Is your best good enough?
If you're one of Jehovah's Witnesses, your best will never be good enough.
Take a good look at your best. Scrutinize it. Examine very closely all you're doing with the time that you have. Can mundane activity be replaced with theocratic activity? What do you see? Is your best good enough? It may be, it may not. It depends on one's outlook. What are some examples? A runner in a race, he practices, trains, eats the right things, keeps a lean, healthy body, wears the best running shoes, and so forth. He gives his best, but loses the race to someone faster. His best was not good enough. Why? It was compared to whether he was faster than his competitors. Johann Blake lost to Usain Bolt in a 100-meter event in 2012 by just a fraction of a second. He did his best, but his best wasn't good enough.
One thing everybody likes to feel is appreciated every so often. Doesn't happen too much, and I have noticed this pretty much primarily in the workplace. The more you give, the more your employer expects, and the more they want. Now, some employers show their appreciation while many do not. Funny thing is, if you look at your coworkers that don't give a whole lot, nothing is really expected of them. They will just take from the ones that give. Now, in reference to this month's broadcast, Jehovah's Witnesses, the one thing I had noticed in the Kingdom Hall. Now, this month's talk by Samuel Hurd, is your best good enough? This is not the first time they've said it. As a matter of fact, there's so many articles on it. They've done talks on it before. But the one thing to Jehovah's Witnesses, no matter what you do for this organization, your best will never be good enough. And I listened very carefully to the wording. Now, the fact that he made comparisons of a runner running a race and losing by a fraction of a second. Jehovah's Witnesses, you didn't even catch it. He did his best, but his best wasn't good enough. Now, there's a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses that give their all. There's many of them that are out in service anytime they can. They never miss a meeting. And they're flat out telling you that as much as you give, it's not good enough. That's one thing I've noticed, how many Jehovah's Witnesses did feel unappreciated. And this is why they always felt let down. What they want to do is run you full throttle. To do what? To go out and find more pawns to bring them in so that they can do the very same thing that you do. Now, the one thing to consider, you can run a high-performance vehicle. Some of them can go upwards of 200 miles an hour. Now, it's good to take those vehicles out every so often and gun it full throttle just to clear the system out. But take that same vehicle out and run it at full throttle every time you take it out, and what you will have is a broken down hunk of junk. And people are much the same way. When you push and push and push and you wind them up so tight, eventually people break down too. And they get discouraged. And this is why so many Jehovah's Witnesses suffer from major depression. This is why so many Jehovah's Witnesses are sickly, because they're pushed and pushed and pushed to give till it hurts. How many articles have you heard over the years about the guilt trips now I'm talking about those brothers and sisters in third world nations that had to cross crocodile-infested water, without a boat, mind you, 50 miles to the nearest Kingdom Hall, but damned if they didn't make it to that Kingdom Hall. Guilt trip. And this is what they do. As a matter of fact, I don't even think they do these articles anymore because I think even the average JW realized that there was a crock of bullshit. The one thing that Herd mentioned that I had never noticed when I was in was people making comparisons of themselves to other brothers and sisters in the hall. And that was never the issue. What I noticed was the issue was that other people in the hall making comparisons. The worst thing you can do to anybody is shove somebody in their face. Well, Brother Swamp Ass was able to get out in the ministry 100 hours last month. Why not you? Now, the thing is, when you shove somebody else in your face, what they're going to do is develop resentment and develop a competitive spirit. Now, Watchtower talks about a competitive spirit all the time, but they instigate it. And they eventually start resenting other people in that hall. When you start throwing people in your face, now I was always told over the years that this is all voluntary. The preaching work was voluntary. Going to the meetings was voluntary. As far as voluntary, but the only thing I noticed that was voluntary was joining the organization. Once you sign the dotted line, it's no longer voluntary. Ask a born-in how voluntary it is. Do they really have a choice? When they're younger especially, could they say to their parents, I don't feel like going out in the ministry today. I don't feel like going to the meeting today. No, they can't. But even those ones from the outside who came in, once you're baptized, once you've been dunked, try not turning in your time service sheet for the month. Try not showing up for the meetings for a few weeks. You'll find out how voluntary it is. Any organization that can terminate you, and I'm talking about disfellowshipping, any organization that requires that you turn in the sheet every month, it is not voluntary. And Jehovah's Witnesses, no matter what you do for these people, your best will never be good enough. You can go 100% of the time, and you'll be expected to do more and more and more. Anyways, guys, those are my observations. I'd love to hear yours. I will talk to you soon. You guys have a good day.
And remember, our best is not compared with the best of another brother or sister.